Well, I know from speaking to some of the Gift of the Givers staff that he is extremely nervous about this briefing and what he may be asked, but really being told by Imtiaz Sooliman that he just needs to tell his story and that no one here is, he has no reason to be nervous. But you can imagine that for someone who was held in captivity for almost 6 years, this is a pretty overwhelming experience. We understand that they were planning to have a briefing with him on Friday last week, but he had to undergo a lumbar puncture and has just recently been released from hospital. So it is quite remarkable, Jeremy, that he's able now at this point to give a briefing and face the kind of questions about those times in captivity. Heartbreakingly, speaking to Imtiaz Sooliman just a short while ago, I asked him whether Stephen McGown, when Stephen McGown had found out about the death of his mother, of course, in May this year, and he said it was 10 minutes before he was reunited with his family, that his dad had said that he didn't want Stephen McGown to break down in front of the family in their first meeting, and he actually asked government officials in the car to tell him that his mother Beverly had passed away. Of course, Malungelo Boy doing heartrending interviews with her in December 2015, where she spoke about her absolute desire to hug and kiss her son, and of course just tragically dying 2 months before he was released.
Karyn, I suppose it's worth reflecting on why this event is taking place at the Gift of the Givers. This is an organisation that was pivotal to the story, wasn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, their representatives, one of whom is in fact here, spent the last 2 years effectively negotiating for Stephen McGowan's release. They are very much denying those media reports, I think in the New York Times, that there was any kind of ransom paid here. They have reiterated again and again that they are not an organization that is prepared to pay ransom, but they were, their staff was very involved, they were very aware of the process, and then at the last stage when the logistics of his release were finalized, the South African government really stepped in and was very pivotal to the kind of military escort, those kind of issues that needed to be finalized in order for him to be brought home. But Gift of the Givers, very much part of this narrative and very much part of supporting the family through these years as they waited and hoped and prayed that they would see their son again.
Karyn, just remind us, so what was he doing in the region in the first place?
Well, it was effectively a holiday. He'd gone with friends, and they were in a hotel restaurant, which was then attacked, and a German tourist was killed during that attack, and then subsequently they were held by Al-Qaeda, and initially quite huge ransom demands being made for their release, and then slowly, as in one instance, one of the hostages that were held with him was freed during a French, sort of ambush on that particular base, and it was quite miraculous because they hadn't actually known that he was there. Subsequently, I think a Swedish national was also released, and then finally Stephen McGowan. So it's taken quite some time, and certainly from his point of view a major adjustment when one thinks of the South Africa that he left behind 6 years ago and the kind of South Africa that he is now immersed in, with all the kind of different dynamics of this particular society. It must be a pretty overwhelming experience.
I think overwhelming is probably the understatement, Karyn. We'll obviously want to know what it was like in captivity. I'm sure a lot of questions will be directed in that respect, but also about getting his life back together again. At some point, I imagine, he will be re-seeking some degree of anonymity.
Well, I think that, from what I understand, he has a massively supportive family, and I understand that he is probably going to start working in his father's business, that he has a very strong family support structure, and I think that possibly, given what he's been through, being surrounded by people who understand to some small degree what he's experienced and can surround him with the care and support that he needs is going to be very crucial. And then, of course, we know from sort of subjective psychological evaluations of people who spend vast amounts of time in captivity, it is quite an adjustment going back to even the simple routines of daily life, sleeping on an actual mattress, having access to proper sanitation, your diet, your rhythms, your routines, all of those things which are like minuscule little details in the ordinary human life suddenly become As I said before, he has been in hospital for various medical issues, but his father's saying again and again that his son is a very strong person and that he really believes he can readjust and come back to normal life, but that will be quite a journey. Of course, the big question is he going to write a book and tell his story in that format, because I think a lot of people would want to read his account of what happened to him and more pivotally how he survived it.
Of that